transform themselves into reality. Therefore, I will concentrate my thoughts for 30 minutes daily upon the task of thinking of the person I intend to become, thereby creating in my mind the permanent picture of that person. Third, I know through the principle of auto-suggestion, any desire that I persistently hold in my mind will eventually seek expression through some practical means of attaining the object back of it. Therefore, I devote 10 minutes daily to commanding myself to development of self-confidence. Fourth, I've clearly written down a description of my definite chief aim in life. And help. Fifth, I fully realize that no wealthy position can long endure, but built on seeking justice. Therefore, I'll engage in no activity that will not benefit all human effect. I'll succeed by practicing myself the forces I wish to use, the cooperation of other people. I'll do others to serve me because my willingness to serve others. I'll eliminate hatred, envy, jealousy, selfishness, and cynicism by developing a love for all humanity. Because I know that a negative attitude towards others can never bring me success. I will cause others to believe in me because I'll believe in them and in myself. I will sign my name to the formula, commit it to memory, repeat it aloud once a day with full faith, and will gradually influence my thoughts and actions so that I'll become a self-reliant and successful person. Hoorah. All right. Now we high five each other. Good morning, everyone. So if you got your journals, if you have your phones and you go to your notes section, just we'll do 5 and 5 today. So 5 gratitudes, 5 things you're grateful for, just to get in that state of gratitude, and then your goals, what you want to accomplish, whether this week, today, this year, in terms of production. And really, I think it's really important to focus on the next 90 days. How many transactions do you want to do in the next 90 days? What kind of income do you need to hit to maintain your goals? Okay, so let's start with that. I'll put some more peaceful music on. And thunderstruck is pretty awesome. Well, I'm grateful. My daughter likes thunderstruck. But that wasn't too bad. You guys are all still standing. You're alive here. All right.
Before we were using Monday,
yeah. I got a good story where when I was first becoming the manager in CME, I didn't think anybody was in the office, and I was practicing projecting, right? And I was working on that because I know it's hard to believe I was shy in front of everybody and getting in front of the group. So I was practicing just projecting across the entire office. I didn't know Ken was in his office while I'm doing this. So I'm like getting fired up. I'm like, first, I know I have the ability to achieve, right? As loud as I can. After I do the whole thing, Ken comes out and he's like, so man, I'm fired up. We're just laughing. But no, it was embarrassing, but cool at the same time. And it's just crazy. When you do that enough, especially we used to do it at least 3 times a week. But when you do that enough, welcome, buddy. Good morning. You just started notice, like I got water here. One of the affirmations is I drink water daily. I seriously have water bottles all over my office, throughout my car, at home. You don't realize that you start actually, reprogramming your mind on whatever it is that you're telling yourself you're doing. And then when they say repetition of thoughts, you have to think of what story are you telling yourself all the time while you're in the car? Are you focused on these negative situations that you're scared of, right? You start becoming very aware and conscious of what your thoughts are doing, which is crazy. And that's why I'm grateful for Ken, because he's been that guy. And I just told him the other day, you have to have somebody that you can trust that's going to keep you moving in the right direction, no matter what it is. And they're going to tell you things you don't want to hear. They're going to tell you things that you need to hear, right? Both sides. Some is like, shut up, stop going down that negative way. And then on the other side, he's going to tell you because he cares about you and it's all truth. Anybody that knows Ken's not going to say something unless he believes in it. And I feel that I'm the same way as well. And so if he tells me you're a rock star, you're great at these things, you do things better than anybody else I've ever seen, it goes a long ways. And sometimes we need to be reminded of that. And as leaders, we have to remind all of you of your greatness and what we see in you. And it's not just to recruit you to come over, it's because we truly believe in it. And that's what we're trying to create. And that's why I wrote Mastermind Harmony here, because that's one thing Mike Ferry's done a good job of with creating his Mike Ferry, whatever you want to call it, system. It's a huge mastermind group. And that's what we're creating within our offices, is a huge mastermind group, which Leslie, you pointed out just a few meetings ago, right? It's something, and just share what, if you can, what you've experienced or what you feel with that. Like, why do you feel that this office operates like a mastermind? What is it about it?
Along what we did out of our meetings with you, like our mastermind
Right,
meetings with you, kind of carries out throughout the whole office, and so we kind of continue on, which is really nice to work in the office, and we'll work with our doors open mostly,
right,
and people can come and go. Like, people come in my office and ask me questions. If I see somebody, I can go and ask them a question. It's really nice to have the support of everybody, all the agents and management throughout the office. That is kind of an open door. It always feels like we're a part of a mastermind group.
right,
And it's just nice to have that support,
right.
you know, so.
The support's big, but it's also, and you do a lot of it, please come in. You're a big part of it in terms of within the office of just, encouraging people to work together. You're working with different agents, that I know historically you had other people that you've worked with in the past, and now you have new agents that you're working with and sharing ideas with, and everybody's winning.
It's refreshing, very refreshing.
Right.
To have that. And I did an open house this past weekend. It's someone I've never done one with before, so it's you're a little nervous to do that, but it actually was a good thing. And
Right.
I encourage people, if you don't have your normal open house partner,
Right.
to branch out and do it with somebody else, because you get new ideas and you'll learn from each other.
It
was a very positive experience.
Well, and it's awesome to hear, because I have, just different agents in the office, and she's not here right now. And hopefully, at some point she can join us or watch the recording. But a newer agent who's working with you on certain things, working with Jen on certain, working with different agents within the office, and she loves it. She just thinks it's so cool that she gets to work with all these agents with amazing backgrounds and who they are. And then the second that you're doing an open house, like a lot of times people don't want to work open houses with other people, not the people in this office, but other offices, because they're worried about, okay, how are we going to handle that lead? What are we going to do? How are we going to split it up? And now I got to chop it up too many times, instead of looking at the opportunity that everybody has different strengths and weaknesses. And when you can start playing off everybody's strengths, and that's one of the biggest things that you think about for yourself. What is my strength zone? What am I good at? And you need to double down on your strengths. And these are things that we're going to talk about. And so before we jump into it, I know we said we start with gratitudes, and now we're jumping into this. Just kind of an overview is I wanted to go over some of the notes that Ken and I picked up from the Mike Ferry management retreat, which is more focused towards brokers and owners, also team leaders, people who are looking to build a team. But what all of you, come on in, welcome. It's good to see you.
Can you let some of the new agents know?
Right.
What Mike Ferry is?
Sure. Yeah, so Mike Ferry is one of the oldest, he's old, right? One of the oldest coaches in real estate. He's been doing it about 40 years in terms of real estate coaching, okay? He's got a style, and a lot of people just historically have been kind of repulsed by his delivery of the message. And what's interesting is, I know Ken, it was one of the first ones that you've been at, where, I mean, that was like a full-on seminar over 2 days, right? In terms of the material. What was your experience?
Well, when I first got into business, I went to Mike Ferry, 21 years ago, and I paid $350. That was a lot back then. People were making that a week. If I go into Mike Ferry, and it was in Orange County, get ticket, all hyped up, walked in, was there for like 15 minutes, and the guy said some stuff. I'm like, I'm out of here. That's not my kind of business. It's not who I am. I'm never gonna do that. And it was basically take numbers and pass it on the next guy and forget it. No repeat business type of thing. It wasn't the way I wanted to build my business. I never really heard him out though. And then as I think he's evolved a little bit more, you know, now he's got a different tone. He's toned it down a little bit. He's not so much of a, and now, quite honestly, I actually learned a lot from this one experience that I went to, you know, with Brandon. And the bottom line is, you all have to find what works for you. You know, what's your calling in this business. Not everybody will be the Mike Ferry type of, because Mike Ferry is an aggressor on taking listings and just going after it more for listing agents. His stuff for sure 100% works. It's been proven time after time after time after time, but it's a numbers game and it's a consistency. So you have to figure that out. But then there's been other people that have influenced me, that have built my business as far as, like, you know, the Feeneys and the Tom Hopkins. Tom Hopkins was the first guy I listened to, and I would advise everybody who's new to listen to Tom Hopkins. Even Mike Ferry brings up Tom Hopkins. You know, they're all people that were all connected with, like Zig Ziglar and all them. They're all the same people, and they all have but they take their takeaways from it. But Tom Hopkins will teach you how to speak to the public when you're new. So I would say that's and I'll tell you, his stuff, it seems like it's a little old, but it really works. The Mike Ferry, it's hands down proven, and it's adjusted now to today's market where it should work. But my biggest takeaway from that whole thing was that here's a guy who's been doing this and doing it for a long time, and yes, he's selling things, but he's coached thousands upon thousands of people, and he's met with every single broker of every single company. So he learns from all these people and what kind of market they're in. And the biggest takeaway he will tell you is, you can't listen to what's going on in the news. You can't listen to all the BS that's going, the minutia that you're hearing, because he said everyone he's ever worked with works in their own world. They don't care about what's going on. They're just out there selling, and they're laughing all the way to the bank. You can bitch and complain and moan and groan, my office sucks, this sucks, that sucks. It's ridiculous. It's you're accountable for yourself. That's it. You have no one to blame but yourself if you're not doing any business right now. There's plenty of help. I don't mean to be brutal, but it's really the case. Even myself, there's times I can't do things and I don't do them. As a matter of fact, right now, I actually had to step up this weekend. I was talking to Juana and I said, I feel like I'm really letting down this office. I gotta start recruiting. I gotta elevate my game. I set 5 appointments yesterday with big companies. And mindset is everything. You can either drown in, and I'll tell you, the one thing that'll happen is sometimes people will, like, I don't want to work a rental. I don't want to do this. And they have nothing going on. But I will tell you this, you put yourself with any client in a car, it's going to change your whole demeanor. It'll make you work again. You will forget about all that negativity and go, oh, I forgot what it's like to actually be selling again. So go out there, do the open houses, do the stuff that you think, it's not dollar for dollar. You have to do the activities, the money-making activities, and they'll lead to something, but you never know where it's coming from. But if you go and shut off, and I told this in the other class, it's like the old days when they had the water pumps, and you had a pump to get that water flowing. It takes a while to get that water flowing. And once it goes, don't stop. Because if you stop and go on vacation or leave, you know, take, I'm not saying don't go on vacation, but if you shut off mentally, your mind goes somewhere else, it is really difficult to kick that back on. Really hard. But don't get discouraged. Just go and set up even a luncheon. Do something to put yourself in front of people, and your mindset will change and you'll start selling again. That's what Mike Ferry was really trying to, the message that I got out of it was back to it. But anyway, sorry to take too long on that.
Not at all, man. Thank you for sharing that, because what you're seeing in terms of the passion and the fire of what happens when you go to an event like that, You get away from your daily rut, your daily routines. And that's what you all have to look at is what's happening. Like if you're writing notes and taking notes, what distractions, what life events, what things happen every single day that take you off course from your goals. And you have to really be cognizant of it. But when you go to an event like this, and that's why I wrote Mike Ferry's Superstar Retreat, July 18th to the
I would
21st.
encourage everybody to go to that.
You can do it. My wife knows every time I've gone to one of those events, every single time I come back laser focused and I go ham in terms of my business. It's not a coincidence. It's one of the best investments you can do. You have to invest in yourself. I'm not saying to sign up for Mike Ferry coaching. I still haven't from this day, even though the very first one I was ready to sign up. Like I was sold. I was like, all right, let's go. And I hear him talking in front of the class, like, I got fresh meat, like no joke. He's like, look at all my fresh meat, my fresh victim. Like, who am I going to sell right now? I'm sitting in the front. I can hear what he's saying. I'm like, no way in hell I'm doing this. And still after it was all done, it's like, I'm ready to go. Let me go sign up. So don't be afraid of that. What you need to look at is, again, this is another mastermind. There's the best of the best of the best agents that are out here across the world that come to this event. You're going to have somewhere between 2,000 to 4,000 people come there. And what's crazy is you'll see less people because money's tight right now. And that's why even at this management retreat where there's normally like 225 owners, there was 175 there, 50 less than normal, right? Because people are cutting back on their budget. So the thing is if you need something to kind of help you get realigned and start focusing on the right things, and that's what I hope from these notes today, it's going to help you just touch on, there's certain key things you should be writing, like, how do I create a productive schedule? What do I need to do for the week to make sure I create a productive schedule? I actually meant to bring my daily calendar. On Sunday, I legitimately wrote out everything as I'm laying in bed and I'm like ready to wind down. I knew I had a lot to do. So I pulled out my week at a glance and I started hitting Monday. Okay, these are the things that need to happen. What appointments do I have? What trainings do I have? Laid out the whole week. And next thing you know, now I'm working in the same way that Ken was focused, and he made 5 calls and set 5 major recruiting appointments, which before that, have you ever done that before?
No. And I'll tell you that the thing is, a lot of it, I try to be transparent and humble when I teach and to tell you that I've been in your shoes. I don't ever want to come in and go, I killed it. I had a very successful career. But I have fear. I get complacent. I have the same weaknesses we all have. But like I said, if you're a competitor, which all you are, because you wouldn't be here right now, you're obviously here to sharpen your skills, even like Elizabeth there. Here's a veteran who's killed it in this business. But she could be doing something else, but yet she's still here sharpening her tools. That's a true champion that's coming in and still doing that. But what I'm getting at is I have my weaknesses. I was thinking, I don't really want to make this. It's not my thing. And then I said, forget it. What am I talking about? I've done this. I've done things that people have never done in their life. Got on the phone, boom, 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 boom. Expecting to close 1, close 5 out of 5. And I just realized, and this is not one agent. I'm talking companies with 25, 30, 40 agents, 5 of them. Well, 1's an agent. And again, it's not that I'm gloating about it, but look at the difference. If you set your mind, boom, boom, boom. And so Mike Ferry says, look, you're not going to hit a home run on all of them. But if you just call 5 of your past clients every day, something's going to happen. Don't do anything else. Just do that. Call 5 people every day. Your leads. He goes, look up all your leads, put them in a CRM. And actually, so I actually brought Brian here. He is a guy who's very systematic. And Brian's developed, Brandon's talking about scheduling. He operates everything off of CRMs and funnels and everything else. So can you share with the class? Like,
Well, I mean,
maybe come up here because it's being recorded.
well, first and foremost, I mean, I utilize both Follow Up Boss and Ylopo to kind of funnel my stuff and just try to automate as much as possible. But I mean, I think for everyone in the room, I think everything just really comes down to just having a system and a process. I mean, we could go to trainings, one after the next, and everyone's gonna tell you a slight different ways, those of you who've been in the industry a long time. But just find a comfort thing just to really identify like the leads that you're gonna look at now within like the next month, the 3 to 6 month, and then the long-term leads. And as long as you have touch points and you can maximize your touch points on those people. But ultimately, I really think it comes down to, I think all of us, when I lose focus, is when I have to sit my butt back in the seat and kind of get re-energized and feed on the energy that these classes provide. So I think all of us go through these peaks and valleys, and like Ken was saying, is once the water starts running, it runs. And I've been in a rut myself. So, and not to change, the tactics, but that's just the reality of it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll have some questions as it's coming through. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just want to point out that. So in CME, regular market, I've mentioned this before, 1,300 listings. 650 in the last 7-8 years. There's 50 listings right now. I was looking as a recruiter, I'm looking at across every company, every single top agent, every one of my colleagues. One listing, maybe. So you can't look at what you're going through right now and go, I am not making it in this business. This is a bad sample. But this is a time to clean up, organize, and utilize different systems to try to generate some new business. Now, Leslie, how did your open house go?
It went okay. It was a condo in Camarillo. We didn't get as much traffic as I have in the past with single family homes.
Mm.
We had a total of 7 groups come through.
Okay.
However, we got a listing appointment of a potential listing appointment next week.
Good.
And a buyer.
Okay.
Out of 7.
That's
So
all.
what's the potential, what's
I'm
the,
okay with that.
what's the
That's
price
better
point
than
of the
20
listing?
coming in and nothing.
Yeah, what's the potential of that listing? What's the price point of that listing?
It'll probably be somewhere in the mid-5s.
Mid-5s?
Yeah.
Okay. And a potential buyer around probably the same price
That's
range.
right, yes, and
Hey,
they
we-
might buy that.
And they might buy that.
Yeah.
So, again, sometimes you think that this is a waste of time. It's waste of time to me is a joke when someone tells me that. I hate those words. That's a waste of my time. I go, what do you have going on? It's a waste of my time. To me, it's like nails on the chalkboard. I just listed a house in Port Hueneme. It's a top floor townhome in an area I don't even work. Quite honestly, I almost screwed it up. I had no idea what I was doing on the comps. Luckily, I was smart enough to call Armani and he set me straight. I was way off. RPR was way off. And see, you have the strength within all our offices you have support like no other company. So I verified it. I thought it was worth 450. It was worth 600. That's how far off I was. Go over there. And the neighbor, I just double popped it. I didn't even put it on the market. All cash, whatever. 600,000, 500,000 doesn't seem like a lot. But on 600,000 is $35,000 in commission. I'm going to make more on that than I did on my $1 million listing, my $1.3 million listing. Nothing's too small. You know,
Man, welcome.
so you have to change your perspective. You know, this isn't the old days. There's not a lot. You're dealing with small amounts of inventory. You're dealing with, having to deal with scraps, but doing those money-making activities, look what happened to her. She's for sure in a different mindset than someone who didn't do that. The person who didn't show up, like Mike Ferry was saying, I keep pointing at the computer like he's there. But like Mike Ferry was saying, stop it. Just stop it. Just go to work. Yeah, that's it. All right.
All right, now we can start. We're ready to
Yeah,
go.
go
No, it's good.
We're waiting for it to be.
Yeah, we're ready. We're ready. Now you're good. Ready to get started. No, it's, thank you. No, that was awesome in terms of sharing it. So as you're taking notes and you're trying to think of, okay, how do I create a productive schedule, right? So we heard one example, it's doing an open house. There's other activities in terms of what you can do. Not everybody can cold call, not everybody even feels comfortable calling their sphere. The sphere, I would say, out of every source right now, that's the key to success, is calling your sphere. Initiating phone calls, keep it easy. You don't have to convince them to sell their home when they're not ready to have that they're not in that mindset. We're not trying to flip them and convince them to sell their home if they're not thinking about it. But what we got to do is we got to put our feelers out there. We got to make phone calls and we got to stay top of mind. We need to set up lunches. We need to set up coffee appointments. If you do anything, from this cost, and we talked about it before, making 5 phone calls to your sphere, but 5 conversations. If you don't get a hold of them, leave them a voicemail. Right. So there's an art to connecting with people, which is a challenge in today's day and age because people are solicited all the time. But if you call back and you're genuinely enthusiastic about talking to them, you start off, and actually Ken asked the question to Mike Ferry, what do you do if you haven't spoken to somebody in a while? And his response was perfect. I thought it was my idea, but I must have got it from him like 3 or 4 years ago. Right. But you start off with an apology. You say, I'm sorry, Jen. I know it's been over a year since I've given you a market update. How are you doing? Right? How's the family doing? So we talk about
Yeah,
family.
He goes,
Go ahead.
I owe you an apology. I just realized that I haven't you. Hey, Joe, this is Ken. I just want to say I owe you an apology. And the person's like, for what? That's what they're thinking. He's like, I just realized I haven't spoken with you in over a year. And then nobody cares after that. That's the way I wrote it down, and specifically, that's what you should say.
Right.
So I haven't made 5 a day, 5 total. I had to put my tail between my legs. I made a phone call to a client I've been spoken to 8 years.
Right.
And I left a message, a rambling message, as I often do. And she actually called me back.
Hey,
A week later, and she was so happy to hear from me. They don't want to sell, but it was actually really nice on a personal level to get back in touch. And I still am humiliated and ashamed of myself. This was someone a client that I care about. 8 years, and I started off with, I am so sorry. I thought her daughter was graduating from high school. She graduated from college.
But it's all
lovely.
it's all there. If you have an SOI, if you have a database, and this is part of when we talk about a CRM, you have to figure out a system for yourself. Not everybody can do the CRM.
Yeah.
Some people have to have their own personal management system to make sure that whether it's an Excel sheet, whether it's something that these are the people, if I were to get married tomorrow, I'd invite these 100 people, 150, 200 people to it, right? And you should be making your way through that list. If you do it, if you try to touch every one of those people in your sphere once a quarter, you divide it by 90 days. So if you have 90 people, that's 1 person a day that's new that you're reaching out to. That's all it is. It's very simple, but you have to be consistent with it. And that's what we're talking about with this. Okay. So I'm going to read some stats and some things. It's going to trigger different things. So we're probably not going to get through all this, but there's some key things that he talked about with the market, right? As Ken talked about earlier, we have to stop listening to the noise. Many of our agents, the reason why we have a lack of inventory right now is because us as agents, hey, Leanna.
I went to see you then.
Okay. Oh, no. Well, welcome. We're just started.
On home.
Right. Sorry. All right. So yeah, no, I'm trying to get back on it with it.
It's gonna trigger many things.
Yeah, no, there's going to be a lot on here. So as he's talking about the market with what's coming up, the reason why we have a lack of inventory right now is because we're not reaching out to our clients.
Yeah.
We're not reaching out to our sphere and listing homes. That's the lack of inventory. But many agents are in a rut. There's no inventory. They have all the reasons not to call because they don't know if they can perform. Okay. We have to take ownership in terms of what we have control over and the time that we do. So he started talking about just different market stats that you need to know about. And I talked a little bit about this on Friday. Okay. Let's talk about profitability. Said, was your business profitable during the COVID rush? That was between June, July, right after the COVID till June and July last year. That for a lot of people, that was their peak. 6.3 million sales transactions took place in that year. So that's the height. So just think of that number, 6.3 million transactions took place. Now, we've had about 4.58 million transactions over the last year. So since that boom, it's dropped almost 2 million sides, but there's still 4.58 million transactions that are taking place. There's still plenty of business that's going to happen, as we said, because of life events, right? So how quickly can you react to that market change? It's the speed and the efficiency of the reaction that can determine the profitability. This is what he said about the market. I think the market's going to respond really well this summer. The market is fine. Buyers in a bit of a panic because we don't have enough listings. We can't convince our agents to prospect to get listings. A lot of people are saying that this summer and fall should be good for all of us. What are the interest rates for the year? 6 to 6.5%, but it's finally stable. It's not going up every single week. It's not increase. We've stabilized the interest rates, which is big. So your agents, buyers are more used to it. They quit talking about the interest rates about 90 days ago. Okay. So if we're in a stable interest rate, that's good for us. Starting at the end of this year, we're going into an election year. These are all talking points as you're talking to sellers of why they need to list right now. 12 to 14 months before the election, the economy goes on fire. You always see a big uptick before the election. These are all positive things for the market. They're all positive things for sellers, right? And they may say, well, we want to wait until that happens. Well, when you wait, everybody else is waiting. Everybody else is on the sidelines. You have to take advantage of the lack of inventory right now. That's the key. Okay. So, then he talks about some different things. Any points you want to add to that? Just in terms of that? Go ahead.
What Brandon was, he said it real quick, but Mike Ferry believes not to keep reiterating on mindset, but he feels that because of, we're in a world that didn't exist in the old days. With the social media and the news the way it is, you're getting information that nobody used to, at a pace that nobody had before. So we're actually not even believing what we're selling, is what he's saying. So we are believing that it is not a good time for our clients to sell. That's what he believes. And because of that, we as agents are not hitting up our clients the way we used to. So if you notice this, where it comes out, which is weird, the youth, the young people are able to use these tools, but they're able to put it aside. I don't know how they're able to do it, but they can not buy into the negative news as much. Us older people, we think the world's coming to an end. To the point where how many of you have had clients leave the state of California? I've had 30% of my clientele leave. 30% went through my list with a marker, 30% left because of the political things. They thought the world was coming to an end. So if you're not buying in and you're not believing that people still need to sell, you're the one that's going to suffer. And there's people that still have to move. You still have job transfers. You have people that want to move up because they have kids or they just got married or their kids are getting married. Real estate never stops moving. And having 50 listings, it's not okay. It's impossible. You have 130,000 people in Simi Valley. I don't know the Camarillo stats, but 135,000 people in a town, how could there be 50 sales? It's impossible. We are not doing so. Things he mentioned to do was start sending your people some CMAs. Start sending individual clients CMAs, showing the value that they have. For a lot of people, I don't know about you, but I went to make a meal the other day, went to the store, I think I was making tacos, and I spent $100 for one meal. So we make a pretty good living. I don't know how the average American does it. So believe me, there's a lot of people for other reasons that do want to leave the state because they can't afford it. Mm-hmm. So the equity that they have is slowly going away, and they're realizing that. So there's going to be, you're going to see I believe in the next few months, an increase in inventory just because there has to be. School's going to let out, and people are going to need to move. But
yeah, can I ask a question on the CMAs though? Mm-hmm. So what are you comparing them to? There just aren't enough sales.
No, you don't need to just do that. You just need to establish. So if you went on a listing appointment for that, let's say your client called you or you called your client and, or your client called you and said, I want to sell my home. You couldn't establish the value of their home?
I mean, yeah, but it would be a lot of, this is where the market is today. I mean, a lot of conversation about that, but if I'm just mailing a CMA, I don't think it's telling today's picture.
Well, actually, I wanna jump into that
Yeah,
portion
right.
of it, so let's do that. So what I wanted to touch on today, and some of it, and I know, Laura, you've asked in the past in terms of how do you create a CMA, right? And what are you doing as you're trying to figure out the value, especially right now, when there's a lack of sales that are out there? So where are we focused at? In the past, it was always on closed sales, if you had enough transactions within the last 6 months. So any newer agents or anybody who's trying to figure out, how do I figure out what the value of a home is? You would typically run a radius search, half-mile radius, and you'd get something within the last 6 months that's either a model match or very similar to that model, and see what is sold and compare, okay, what are the benefits and features you have in your property versus the home that just recently sold. But that's going to carry the most weight. Well, at a time like right now, where you don't have a lot of inventory that's out there, or even past sales, maybe in the last 6 months, which I just pulled it up recently for Camarillo because of an opportunity that I have that I'm going to be going to at 12:30 today. So it's right around, when I pulled it up off Zillow, or not Zillow, RPR had it at 778. So if you want to try to figure this out, 778 is the mark, and that is the last sale that's very similar. This place is only about 1340 square feet. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, central Camarillo, okay? Good neighborhood. I didn't see the photos yet. The photos are actually fantastic. This place is pretty highly upgraded, but 778 was a very realistic value in terms of, okay, under 1,400 square feet, based on a model match. It wasn't exact, but very similar in size, and 2 streets up that sold there. So anytime you're running a search, as you're preparing for it, you have to know what the highest sale is in that neighborhood, and don't limit it to that square footage, because there was another one that sold for almost $920,000 just up the street, but was about 2,400 square feet. Okay. And you have to know about that sale, because guess what? Your neighbor does. And if you don't know about that and you're talking about 778, somebody else comes in and says, no, I can get you 900,000, right? And they start focusing on price over the truth of what the comps show. Now, the crazy thing is after I started having conversations, so I did all my comps justified right about 775 to maybe 785,000 after looking at all the closed sales. But what do we have to call? What's missing? What's important to know to have a pulse of what's happening today? Just ideas. Actives, okay. How many actives? Why is that important?
The competition and what's available for other buyers.
What's available for other buyers? Because could we possibly go higher than that 778? And you also, right, multiple offers. Sometimes comps aren't even relevant in today's market. Today, comps aren't as relevant,
Yeah,
right?
Let me give you a starting point. So before the correction of the interest rate, we were at a really good peak. Correct?
Yeah.
So you can go back, which has been about a year now, I think.
It's January, February, March of last year.
So go back,
Not this recent.
look at the comps there, add 10%. And it'll give you a good reference point to start. Any comp that closed prior to whatever closed, that was the peak. Then we saw a little bit of a correction just because the interest rate, came in higher. So we saw a low, but then the influx came in again. So it's whatever it was, add 10%. And that's going to give you a good reference point. Now, that being said, at that point, if you're not familiar with that area, because I'm in the trenches, I do a lot of open houses. I get a lot of, Juan and we have a lot of buyers that we can't even find a house for. I know what they're willing to pay. And based on that demand, I know that if I came up to a house, they would just buy it. So you have to be in the trenches and understanding that. So having conversations with your colleagues, don't be shy and talking to people that specialize in that area. And go, hey, if I had a listing in this area, what do you think it'll sell for? Your colleagues are going to tell you that specialize in each little area. That's their niche. Like even in my neighborhood, it's funny. I signed up for this automatic thing that tells me my home worth. and it's from a high company. It's throwing out numbers of 1.2, 1.3 when homes are selling for 1.8. It's complete, and that's what you need to be careful. Be careful with automation. Because all these AIs and everything, they can't replace you being in the trenches. It's a big problem. So don't be the person that just automatically puts something on a drip system like that. Because if you're any homeowner today knows what their home is worth. They all have an idea. 90% do. And if you send them something that says it's worth this, they're going to think you're completely incompetent. They'll never do business with you. So be careful on putting things on automation like that. But I will tell you, go back to that time, add 10%. And there's plenty of accounts back then. It'll give you a reference point.
From January.
From January of last year. Yeah.
Thanks, appreciate that. So jumping into the preparation aspect of it. So as I get the phone call, right, and my wife gives me a heads up, she's like, hey, they want to meet with you. It's a situation. And I'm going to try to be as mindful because it's a local family going through a tough situation. So there's a chance that some of you may know these people. Okay. And they are friends and it's a tough situation and they feel comfortable because they feel that I can be neutral in it. So some of the things I want you to think about as people are interviewing as the agent, what are the qualities that you have that they're looking for that they're going to want to hire you over the competition? And one of the best things I went through was mediation training. And it taught me how to create a room, an office or an environment where people trust you and they can feel open in a very tough situation and start sharing information. So you have to say things like what we talk about will remain in confidence. What we talk about will stay in this room. They have it's a technique called caucusing, and caucusing means when you have two people in a highly disputed situation, you take one person into another room and you speak to them individually and say, look, what we talk about is going to stay here. If you want me to share something with the other side, then we'll do this. Well, in this situation, there's a separation that's happening. This is a very important skill set. Okay. But in terms of preparing, it's what Ken had touched on. And I wanted to make sure we all understand the steps, that it's just not going to a one-line report CMA and thinking you're going to figure out what the value of the home is. You have to talk to the other agents and you got to call the actives and see what it looks like and guess and feel based on their price, what kind of activity they have. And these are the questions you want to ask them. How much activity do you have? Or do you have a lot of showings? Do you have any offers in hand? Are you way over asking price? Get as much intel as you can. This is the stuff I guarantee you, not every one of the people who are competing for this listing are doing this. And when you do this, nobody has a stronger pulse of what's happening than you if you can get that information. But you also have to remember, if you call an agent who's got an active listing, it's not sold yet, they're going to hold their cards close. Okay. So what I believe in is you got to give before you can get, right? And what I mean by that is I'm going to call and I'm going to create value in that conversation when I call them up and say something to the effect of, this one was actually the property on Mobile. If any of you saw the home that was on Mobile, it was listed at $855. It's about 1,700 square feet. I thought personally it was priced on the higher side, right? It was on the market for about 20 days or so. It went into escrow. It's actually closed in a few days. They got $855. I thought that was on the higher side. So if I assumed based off my assumptions, I would have thought they didn't have much activity. They also were only offering 2% commission. Called her up. She said it was nonstop in terms of the calls, the activity, but she didn't tell me what the number was, but close to that, right? Then Becky Duarte's got another listing that's up right now. Some of you may be writing on that property, right? And I didn't even get to speak to her. I just called her up, said, hey, I have a few questions for you on this particular property. Can you give me a call when you get a chance? She says, my phone's been ringing off the hook. They've priced it high. That one's already over, I want to say it's over 850. It's about 1,400 square feet, very close to this one. So again, remember comps for this said 778. After talking to the two people who have active properties right now, right around 850,000, their phone's ringing off the hook. I would have undersold this home by $50,000 to $75,000 and they would have trusted me with it. I could bet money they'd trust me and listed it.
But then the market would have brought it up.
Could, but what I've noticed on the trends is most of them are capping about 50 higher than the asking price. So what if I start at 825? I'm still probably close to the sweet spot today, right? A month from now, it might not be. right? These comps may be more important, but now we'll have higher sales at $855,000 that are definitely going to influence it. That's why these conversations are so important. That's why calling these agents, but again, I had to give, and what I gave when I spoke to one agent, I said, look, I'm going to be speaking to an owner. Welcome. Come on in, right here, front and center. There you go. I'm going to be speaking to somebody soon and potentially listing this home in Central Camarillo. So once I sign this off, I'll give you a heads up if you have any buyers that potentially could be a fit for this home. That's my give. Now, when I ask them what happened on your home, I'd say it's like 95% of the time they're telling me everything or everything that I need so that I can get that information. Okay. Does that all make sense? Just wanted to make sure I touched on it, really define that process. Go ahead.
So when you see a house that's 0 days on the market, or 1 day on the market and it goes into escrow, I caution you in accepting that as a comp. So like Brandon's saying, it is crucial that you call these agents. Why am I saying that? Like Liz, why would I say that? Why would I say I caution you and that might not be a good comp? What might the agent tell you that could impact how the sale might go? Or the fact that on your pricing, how could it impact your pricing? What do you think that agent might say to you that might impact how you may look at that comp?
It might not be something accurate, I guess, just quickly that it's sold.
Exactly. So maybe they sold it themselves. Maybe they sold it themselves and it never hit the market. What would the market, maybe it would have bared, like Elizabeth was saying, what would it have bared? It never got a chance to do that. So if they say, oh, I double popped it, I sold it myself and never hits it, sold before print. To me, that's garbage. I won't even use that. Now, let me ask you something else. What if you see a property that's been on the market for 80, 90 days? And it's one of your comps, you're doing your CMA. Laura, what would you do if you saw that?
It's in escrow or it's still active?
No, it's actually in escrow, but it was on the market for 80, 90 days before it went into escrow, and you're using it as a comp. What would the phone call be to the agent?
Well, I would ask the same questions, like what type of activity you had, how many offers. I would obviously look at the price that it was listed at versus if they're willing to share how much it's in escrow for, and that would tell me, you know, whether their price that they listed at was accurate. If it was able to bring in enough buyers for multiple offers or not.
Perfect. So is everyone hearing that? So you're asking for activity. You're asking for activity because you want to see if they had 20 offers on it, then maybe you could have sold it for more, right? That's the common sense on that. The one thing that she missed that she didn't say, and I actually ran into this yesterday. House was on the market, new listing, but it showed that it was on the market for 80, 90 days. Now, if that closes, it's going to close and it's going to say that it was on the market for 80, 90 days. I asked the agent, why in a market that's selling, that everything's selling overnight, is your home, why was it on the market for 80, 90 days? We had a leak. We took it off the market. I put it on hold, and when I put it on hold, time kept, ticking. So to me, that gave me the answers that I wanted to know. So no, it wasn't priced too high. It just never had exposure. Does that make sense? So everything tells a story.
Bless you.
So it is your job to call these agents, because again, as everything I teach, all of you know, the number one thing is what? Discovery. Discovery will lead you to the answer to everything. So when you call these agents, pick their brains apart. Do you have any offers? Yes. How many do you have? 4. Can you tell me what price it's selling for? No, I'm not at liberty to discuss that. Is it over asking? Yes. How much over asking? Well, I can't really tell you that. Is a little bit? Yeah. Now they'll give you the answers. Dig. And they just told you the answer, even though they said they're not at liberty. Just be a pest about it, and they'll tell you.
Yeah, no, it was good. So I wanted to talk about this scenario again, the situation, and I want to see as we talk about discovery, what questions, what do we need to know to make sure that one, we can take the listing now, because there's a difference between conditions and there's a difference between objections, okay? Conditions are certain things that have to be met. They have to happen. This thing has to happen before I can sell the home. We need to live in the home for at least 2 years. Objections are more excuses of why they're not going to commit right now, really, because they're not sold on you and you haven't sold them that now is the best time to buy that home. Okay. So you have to be able to discover and understand the difference between the two of them. But you have this situation, you get a referral on, you know, a separation situation. Okay. You know that one person is a primary earner, works in a certain type of field that makes pretty decent income. And if there's a separation, there's going to be spousal support and there's going to be other types of financial help, right? So before we meet, we know that this is kind of a discovery, but just know every time you're doing an initial, even just previewing the home and having that conversation, that's a listing presentation, okay? Even if you're just previewing that home, you need to prepare like you're going to get a signed listing agreement that day. Even if they tell you we're not doing anything today, we're just talking to you, just trying to get some information, trying to understand things. We have to know what's going on in their head. So piggybacking off what Ken's talking about, everything's about discovery. What do we need to know? So that's all I know is, you know, I'm just using this as a hypothetical. I know that I need to meet with them. I don't know much about what the situation is other than they're looking to potentially cash out. They bought the home in about 2017, should have, and I'm just going to start giving some answers. A net sheet is one thing that you have to have before you go meet with them. Does everybody know what a net sheet is? Anybody not know what a net sheet is? Okay, so a net sheet is going to be something that typically for myself, I'm going to reach out to Angel at All Valley Escrow. And I'm going to say, okay, this is the price I think I'm going to sell it at. And at that time it was $775. I need to know what the payoff is. So this is information I need to discover, and I'll shoot them a text or I'll call them and say, hey, what's your payoff? And they'll ask me, is there anything else you need before we get to our meeting? Payoff is going to be really important. So on this one, let's just say it's $500K, okay? For the total payoff, that's the loan that they owe on the property. You're also going to have other expenses, commission, right? So if you're doing 5% commission, I want it to split and say 2.5 and 2.5, because it all lumped together at 5%. It's going to look like I'm getting paid over $40,000, right? Or $35,000 on $800,000 sale. Okay, it's actually 40K, right? So I'd rather have it split 20K and explain to them that we need to offer 2.5% on the other side. But the reason why this net sheet's so important is we talk about having all the answers. This is the final thing they need to know whether they can move forward or not. They need to know what they're going to walk away with if we sell it at this amount. But we also need to be able to talk about the market, and we'll get into that in intelligent pricing, what the market's doing, why there's a benefit to selling today versus waiting a month or 2 months to get these other answers. The stronger you get at that, the stronger you will be at taking listings today and beating the competition. You have to understand that. It's about how well you know the market. I wrote Becoming the Market Expert. You have to be the best at knowing the market. You have to be the best at knowing the stats. You have to be the best at doing the research. If you do all this before you meet with them face to face, even though you're just supposed to talk to them and kind of figure some things out, they will trust nobody else other than you. But you get one impression to do that. So you can't go over there and not be prepared. You need to put in the time up front so that when you show up, you speak with the conviction and the knowledge and understanding that they know there's no better person than you to list that home with. Does that all make sense? Okay. So the net sheet, the other things you'll have on there too is like title and escrow cost. So that's escrow and title. You'll see these fees. But basically, once you see what all the costs are, and the costs are pretty heavy in selling homes with a real estate agent, right? And just in general, people are pretty shocked when they see that. But what we get them to focus on is not the expense. What are they walking away with? Okay. And even more importantly, they list with the right agent who has the right systems and can generate the most opportunity. You're going to more than take care of what you're charging commission. And you're going to cover all that and some, and you're going to protect them through negotiations. Okay. Because there's 4 key things. I know Kim wants to say something. Okay. There's 4 key things that you do as an agent Leanna, I haven't picked on you yet. So what are those 4 pillars?
Consultant advice.
Consult and advise. Write these down if you're new or you don't know these. Consult and advise. What else?
Get and expose.
Market and expose.
Create restaurant.
Negotiate the best terms.
And I forget the last.
You got it. No, those are 3 money ones. No. I'll give you the second part of it, so I don't give away the first part. On average, we have to sell every home twice. Typically, 150 phone calls take place from when we first start speaking to the end of the transaction. Oversee the transaction. There you go. Just remember, since we got our see me agents, it's see me no. Right? Would I move to see me? Hell no. See me no. So see me. C is consult and advise. Me is market and expose. N is negotiate the best terms. O is oversee the transaction. I've been busting your chops for a long
Wait,
time, bro.
I have one too. It's Camarillo blows.
There we go. See me knows, camera blows. There we go. All right, perfect. I don't know what blows is gonna stand for, but it just works, right? So you're gonna oversee the transaction. So what she just hit right there, every top listing agent does one of these 4 things in their transaction. You have to be able to articulate and communicate what your job is as an agent. What we've been talking about right now is the market, but how do you market and expose the property to get the most amount of people to see your home? And the great news is you're working with Century 21, the most recognized name brand globally, right? We have, where do you think most cash investors come from? Foreign cash investors. China. How many offices do we have in China?
1,000.
Over 1,000. Over 1,000 offices in China. How was it in Costa Rica with Century 21?
Awesome.
All over the place, right?
Yeah, they're everywhere.
And do they feel comfortable with listing with the Century 21 agent here in the United States? If they're going to refer their business? It's the most recognized name brand globally. You list on century21global.com and you can type it up and show it to your clients. It's going to be translated into 18 different languages, 4 currencies. Okay. It's just like what they would say, Century 21 is synonymous with real estate. Just like if you see a Coca-Cola brand, you know that's a Coca-Cola product, right? It's the same thing. That's what C21 is. But do we believe in that when we meet with sellers? That when you list with us, nobody's going to be able to market and expose. And in my discovery questions, I'm going to ask, oh, so you're speaking to a couple other agents. That's great. Who do they work for? Well, I don't even know the brokerage name. Oh, you don't know the brokerage name? And you don't see a concern with that? How do you think a buyer is going to feel when you're trying to market and expose that property to the greatest amount of people and you don't even remember what the brokerage's name is, right? Or you don't know what kind of exposure you're truly getting when you list with them. Can I tell you why that concerns me? Because is this your most important investment that you have? The answer is always yes, right? Is it very important that we walk away with as much equity as we can with this property? Yes, it is. Okay. So you have to understand that level already.
You're showing.
All right. Well,
Sorry.
keep showing. All right. Gonna see. So marketing and exposing the property is really important. And you want to practice this. If you don't, you haven't practiced it, you really want to practice it. So getting back to the preparation piece of it.
Well, let me add something real quick.
Go ahead.
I was going to on that part of it. When you're going in for the higher end listings, the big time stuff, most of those people are professionals that run something, or they work with money, or they run something that's worth a lot more than the average person. So when you're talking to them, you want to say, like Brandon was saying, this is one of your biggest assets, correct? If you were selling a multi-million-dollar company, would you just hire anybody? No. Well, this is your biggest asset. Why would you hire anyone that does less? So I will tell you that kind of line, and then convince them of why and what you're going to do is going to go a long ways on the high end stuff. It puts things in perspective to them, because the narrative in the last few years has turned negative or derogatory towards real estate agents. And it used to not be that way, because it was easy, just put up a sign and sell, and people weren't doing their job and getting paid a lot of money. So you have to tell them and show them what you're going to do that's going to be different, and at what level you're going to do that. But before you do all that, before you do any of this, everybody's situation is gonna be different. But when you make those calls, like Aman, he's a young kid getting in, doesn't even have his license yet, that knows nothing about real estate. I want you to role play with me right now, okay? You're gonna be the seller of a home. And I'm gonna ask you a couple questions.
Yeah.
So, why are you selling? Make something up on everything.
Kids are going to college.
Kids are going to college. What school are they gonna go to? Are they gonna be out of area or local?
Yeah, they're going out of state.
Out of state. And so do you wanna move closer to them?
Yeah, probably just to be near the kids.
You wanna be near the kids, okay. And when do they start school?
They start in August.
In August, it's May right now? Okay, so preferably you'd like to be there, before school starts, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and let me ask you, how long have you lived in your home?
5 years.
5 years? Okay, and is there any issues, or have you ever sold any houses before in the past?
Well, yeah, we moved in from another house before and have to live there for 5 years as well.
And what were your experiences like with that, with the previous agent?
I mean, they were pretty good, I guess.
Okay, and was there anything negative that they did?
Yeah, they didn't get us the pricing that we wanted.
Okay, so is pricing important to you?
Yes.
Okay, and what's the most important thing that you expect out of an agent to do for you?
Just, be knowledgeable about the market and get us the best possible price for the house.
Okay, and what about your wife? Does she work in the area?
Yeah,
And how's this move gonna affect her life?
she's gonna have to get a new job.
She's gonna have to get a new job. Okay, is that gonna affect your income?
Yes.
Okay. So probably getting the most for your home would probably be very important to you, right? Okay, so would you say that, so timing is important and getting the most money for your home is most important, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so the point of all that is what, Laura? Why am I asking those questions?
You're discovering their reason for selling so you can provide service to them unique to their situation.
Right. Do you guys understand that not everything equates to money? Right? And I'll give you a basic example of that. How many of you buy things on Amazon here? Raise your hand. How many of you pay $5 more to have it delivered 1 day quicker? Timing, things like that are important. And it doesn't equate. So stress, for example, having to be with his kids. Everything he told me is going to be what my listing and presentation is going to be about. So before I go about it, I'm not just looking, so we look at the comps, we look at the value. But if I don't sell this, his kids aren't going to be in school on time. And now I also have to net the most amount of money because his wife's not going to work. So when you sit down and meet with them, I'm going to say, Ahmad, is there a place we could sit down? And I'm going to go through it and I'm going to say, look, based on everything I see here, I know that timing is going to be important. Your kids need to be in college, by October. Your wife's going to need to get a job. She's probably going to want to start doing that move. If you told me one other thing, I would suggest this price. If you tell me this thing, I'm going to suggest another. But based on the fact that you need to move quickly, I think we should price this home aggressively and try to get multiple offers to get you the most money. If you didn't have any reason to move, I'm going to suggest this number, because now we can try the market and try to go for this. But since you need to be in this area at a given time, it's going to be in your best interest to price it at this price point. That's how you overcome these things. When you lay these things out in these presentations, you won't get the pushbacks on that stuff. As you go through and you listen to and go through, I have a full class on listing presentation, and there's a series of questions, and you discover what's going to happen is that you're going to establish your value. And that was a rough description. I wouldn't do it that way. But when you go through and you do all this and you establish your value, they're opening up and they're sharing and they're getting to know you and you're building that bond. When you actually sit down at that point, they're not gonna give you that pushback. It's the agent that comes in and says, all right, let's sit down, let me show you what I got. And this is the comps, and these are where this, and you don't know anything about them. You don't know any reason why they're moving. So they're gonna give you mass pushback, because the whole time they already had in their head, here comes a salesman. And sales means, they're trying to rip me off. But you get over that hump as you build a bond with them. And the more and the fact that you're listening to them, they feel that there's a bigger comfort with you and they're not going to give you that pushback. So it's really important to, prior to doing all that, that you discover the reasons for them moving.
Oh, it's good. Thank you. You be my camera guy? You get a little video right here, quick. You don't have to just record me, more of the audience. but- Yeah, it's all good. Or just focused on Candace because she feels uncomfortable right now. So, no, so awesome stuff. So biggest thing is we keep talking about discovery, right? Before I have this meeting with him today, I had a lot of things that I was unsure in terms of what the situation is going to be. So what do I need to do before the meeting? What's important? What's a necessary step? And I want all of you to make sure you implement this and don't go into a situation guessing, because I cannot assume that I'm going to take the listing if I don't have these certain answers. So what needs to happen before I meet with them today?
Research.
Research is important. I did all the research and we talked about that earlier. I called the different agents. What else needs to happen?
Find out where they're going.
What's that?
Find out where they're going.
Find out where they're going. How do I find out where they're going? You have to have the pre-qualification call. That is the key to winning the listing, is you have to take the time and call before the meeting and start saying, okay, I have a few questions. So I knew she was busy during the day. So I shot her a text and said, hey, do you got a few minutes to chat? I got a couple questions for you right before our meeting tomorrow. And then she said, after 1 o'clock, I'm good. So she calls me up at 1:20. I'm actually on the way to a lunch meeting, but that's the time that she's available. So as we're calling, or as what I did was I wrote these questions. And let me just pull it up just so you see that I'm doing what I'm talking about here. Of course, it's acting up. Okay. I wrote their names and I put pre-qualification. 1, what's the goal of the meeting? Most important question. What are we trying to accomplish tomorrow when we get together? It's a very easy, open-ended question that you allow them to just start spewing and telling you everything they need to know. So what's our goal of the meeting tomorrow? What do you hope to get accomplished when we get together tomorrow? Does that seem high pressure? I'm telling you, it's going to just open it up. Then I'm putting objections. I'm already identifying what are the objections going to be that could potentially prevent us from moving forward. And I put one of the spouse's next purchase based on the interest rate. How much does she qualify for? Will the other person be willing to help her purchase the next property? So I'm writing all these questions out before I even make the phone call. Okay. Then timing, as Ken talked about, what's timing look like? Do they want to list this tomorrow? Are they thinking 6 months, a year from now? Do certain things need to be met? Pricing. What do they have in mind for pricing? I don't just start telling them this is the numbers. I want to know, what number do you have in your head? What are you thinking? Why is that number important to you? And I'm going to dig deep on that. Concerns with selling. What are your concerns with selling the home? Okay. Challenges that you foresee with selling the property. Could be condition of the home. Could be challenges of, because of this separation, there's a child that's involved. And do we, we're trying to protect that in the process. Okay. Upgrades you've done to the home. What do you plan to do before you list it? It said 3 bedrooms, 1 bath on tax records. It's actually 2. I had to get that clarified, right? So there's all this information I need to know before I sit down with them so I truly can be prepared and be the expert that they need. Does that make sense?
And don't be afraid to ask, what do you think your house is worth? Do you have any idea what your house is worth? Has anybody told you? And they'll go, well, sometimes they'll say, that's why I hired you.
Right.
But a lot of times they'll just say, yeah, I have enough, idea. It's probably gonna, I know it's in the high fives and this and that. And then you sometimes you'll know what expectation you're going against. They'll tell you. Like, well, I know I can get at least 1.8 and it's worth 1.5. Now you have to figure out, okay, how am I going to tell this person or show them
Right.
how to bring them down to earth?
So after I have those questions prepared, and then I start speaking to the gal, She shares with me, she doesn't know what kind of spousal support she's gonna be getting. So that's now a condition that we have to wait until we know what those numbers look like. Okay, so I know already, even though I have everything prepared, and I've spent hours doing this and getting ready for it, right? Now I know we still need to wait until we get this information because we need to know what she can purchase or rent, right? But if we can figure those numbers out now and hypothetically already figure out where she could potentially qualify for, renting may be the best answer. It may be in this situation. So now we don't want to wait 2 months and miss the best part of the market right now, where they potentially can make an extra $50,000 to $75,000. That's legit. An extra 50 to 75 by listing today and not have to fix anything, versus we wait a couple months till the proceedings take place and she finds out exactly where the numbers are at. Because right now we know roughly what they'll walk away with, which is plenty of money to definitely rent for at least the next 2 to 3 years. You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense? So I have to ask questions, not just discover. I got to help them self-discover that they need to take action now versus later on. So it's a much more complicated, challenging situation than I expected, but I don't know this unless I make that phone call. And if I would have showed up today without that call, there's a very slim probabilities that I would take the listing, and I'm still feeling very slim because I know she wants to wait until she gets more concrete numbers. Does that make sense? So I wanted to make sure I shared this situation because you have to have a process like this. And if you have a process like this, you're going to increase your probabilities through the roof in terms of taking these listings. The other thing that Mike Ferry talked about as you become the market expert, right? You have to talk about how many new listings, how many listings sold. Is your market shrinking or growing in terms of inventory, right? And then it says, let me talk about what's going on today. So situations that we know about. There was another home on Rockland and trying to remember the street, right before our Neo there, the one Palmer. That one was listed at $799, went over asking price, multiple offers over, they had 7 offers. This is within the last couple weeks. So 7 offers, they were listed at $799. Again, comps, $775. We have a listing that hits that backs up to our Neil, and that's going out 7 offers over. So do we have a lot of buyers looking at the limited inventory right now?
It just sold for $840.
So 840,000. So
For Neil.
So do you see where if all I stuck to was the numbers in doing the comps, I'm off by $60,000 to $70,000. You have to make the phone calls, and we got to trust our colleagues, especially if it's in-house, so that we can share that information to help.
There's a perfect example. I called, like Brandon just said a statement, and if he was to say, Elizabeth, what do you think this would sell for? It just sold for $840 and it backs only because you knew that. Anyway, Juana lives in Simi. She has no idea that where that house is, why that's a detriment to that home, but you just enlightened her. So if she calls you and asks, I'm about to list this home, and you said, this just sold for $840 and it backs out, your home is going to sell for at least this, is what you're going to say.
Right.
And you're going to go, wow, like I did the comps, looked at RPR, and everything. I call Armani. He goes, that's a different building. It's not the same as the one next door. It has an elevator. That's why it's worth more.
Right.
$200,000 more. One phone call.
You would have told me I had an elevator, I had a buyer for that one
Yeah,
too.
there you go.
No, serious.
Well,
I'm not even
myself,
joking. He's
why
been
don't
looking
you
for
buy
one. I know. The last time I helped you out.
Yeah, forget it.
Yeah.
That
So,
thing has double stairs.
so the other thing you want to differentiate as you're talking about the market, you also want to ask them the question when you're discovering this info and you're talking about the market shrinking, expanding, you're talking about the different stats and they're interviewing other agents. You want to ask them, did the other agent ask you these questions? Is that important to you? I'm telling you, it's very important. Let me tell you why that's important. And then it says, if you price it right, it will speed up the process, as Ken was talking about. Are you willing to price it to sell or let it sit on the market for 6 months? These are the bold questions that you have to be willing to ask your seller, prospective seller. What are they trying to accomplish? Nobody wants to wait 6 months.
And another way of asking that question, so like that role play I did wouldn't be that way. If I go to a listing appointment, I'm going to be prepared and I have my series of questions that I put in line. But one of the questions, the way you can ask that question is, what effects would this have on you and your family if it took 6 months or longer to sell? they're gonna share with you. And they might say, I don't care, we're fine, we're retired. But if they said, what do you, 6 months, you can, like, that'd be horrible, I wouldn't get my job, I wouldn't do whatever. And then you're gonna be, that's gonna help you give them a reduced price, take a listing at a right price, instead of some ridiculous price. When you share what effects are this, they're self-discovering. That question lets them realize what effects it would have. See, when you go to an appointment and you don't do these things, all they're thinking about is, I want this money. And they don't understand the ramifications of that. So it's important for you to let them self-discover by these questions that you ask, what the ramifications are. And what would it mean if you hired this agent over us? Did they ask you those questions? They're gonna self-discover, no, that guy didn't ask me anything. That makes him a better choice.
I'm telling you, talking about the market numbers, and this is, I printed the Flex Market Summary Report again for Camarillo. This one's 93010. Talking about this has been a game changer for me at listing presentations. We had a previous C21 CEO, Rick, can't remember his last name. Rick, do you remember? What was it?
Bailey?
No, it was Rick, it was like Davidson or Davison.
Yeah,
Yeah. He was a big commercial guy, but huge on market stats. And once he did a summit for us, which was a big meeting for us, and he just went over market stats. That was the best thing that I learned from him, learning on a national and a local level. And you have to know these numbers, because I'm telling you, it's going to separate you from all the competition. But so one of the things I do when I pull this up, if I think it's going to sell around 800,000, I'm going to look and I'm going to write it down in my journal just so I know the numbers off the top of my head. And I'm going to say, okay, so last month, between 800,000 and 900,000, can anybody guess how many homes were active in Camarillo? 93010, between 8 and 9. It's actually the most out of any price point. 9. Okay, 9 were active last month. Guess how many went pending?
9.
3.
Oh,
So pending, no, I'm sorry, pending was 7. I read the wrong one. Pending was 7, sold was 5. The new listing, sorry, was 3. I was looking at, I can't see the top on that. New listings was 3. So only 3 new ones came in. So now most of them are going. Just a few months before, it was only like a third of them are going. So it's already, now it's happening. We're delayed almost a full quarter in terms of January, February, March, where it's normally starts picking up. It's just starting. It's like January, February, March now from what we're used to in the past. But the problem is everybody's so used to, oh my gosh, nobody's selling, nobody's buying, the rates are too high, and everybody's bought into that. Yet the agents, and this is one thing Mike Ferry talked about, that was very important to understand. The top listing agent skill set, first, there's fewer and fewer that are in this range, but their skills are through the roof compared to what it used to be 10 years ago. So now you have a top, like, let's just say 1% or 2% of agents that are crushing it, and they are strong in their presentation. They're strong in what we're trying to teach in terms of what we're talking about and executing. They have a strong schedule that is built upon protecting the mindset, practicing every single morning, role playing, practicing these objections. We're talking about it once a week. Who's actually practicing it? Who has a role play partner? Who's handling these kind of conversations every single day? They're doing a minimum 30 minutes to an hour each day.
Mike Ferry kept
Yeah.
talking about that.
It's huge, but we have to create a schedule that does it. Not, oh, there's too many trainings. That's why we've limited it and we're alternating every other week. So it doesn't feel like that. But are you doing it on your own and making sure that your skills are going to be through the roof? Because the ones who are, they are dominating the market and they're going to take market share. So the range, the gap is getting bigger and bigger between the top agents versus everybody else. And the good news is if you work on your skill set, you're going to take over an abundance of the market, not just a little bit. It used to be 90-10. It's getting like 95-5. I'm telling you, it's getting heavily slanted. And the agents that are plugging in right now, you're going to see an abundance of listings and opportunities coming. They're going to crush. And everybody else is going to be trying to catch the little small piece of what's left over because the ones who have these systems in place are crushing it.
Let me ask you a question too, when you're doing your CMA and establishing the value. Leslie, for example. You mentioned that the active listings were important to you, right? And it is.
Yes.
You call the active listings
I do.
agents? You
I
do?
could call the active, well, the one that are, you know, within my comps and I call the pendings as well.
And what are the questions like when you call the actives?
Well, when I call the actives, I find out what kind of activity they're getting, if they're gonna be holding open houses anytime soon. I ask their opinion on how they think they're priced. Did they price according to comps or did they price above or below? I kind of wanted to know what their strategy was.
So I'm not asking this question because I need to know the answer. I'm trying to share with you guys the power that you have in this room. She's a seasoned professional. That's what you're going up against. If you're not making that call, she is. And I'm gonna tell you what happens when you look across, when you guys are taking shortcuts. Not saying you are, but people do. You look and you say active listings, okay, forget it, that's their active. These are the closed. I can't look at the pendings. You've been taught this. Did you know that there's an active lag time? You know how many agents don't change their actives to pending for a week? And you just assume that they're still active? You know, and no, I sold in a day. Oh, I forgot to change it. All these things, by you doing those activities, is gonna give you that edge. And I'm just telling you, it's not that I'm trying to educate you on that question. I want you to understand that when you compete in this business, even though we're here together, if you're gonna go up against Leslie, you better bring your A game. Because she's gonna bring it. She's doing the job. And she's gonna inform them of what's happening. And believe me, that seller's gonna ask what's going on with that. Imagine if you sat down and the seller knows that the home just sold because they're friends with them. And you say, oh, it's still active. You're done. You're done.
They might have 5 offers on the table.
On the
and
table.
just Negotiate.
The neighbors talk. So don't take shortcuts when you're making the kind of money that you're making. You're doing yourself an injustice and you're doing your clients an injustice. So be professional with this job.
That's good. Any questions before I want to just wrap up with some closing thoughts, just to make sure that we're focused on the right things, you know, after this class and we take some action. But any questions just about what we talked about? New agents are probably been hit pretty hard with it. How do you guys feel about this? With what's being shared? It is a lot of info, right? Okay. How are you feeling? Doing okay? You got a lot to say.
A lot of notes.
Yeah, a lot of notes. That's good. How you doing back there, Pete?
Good.
Good, good. Anything that you're hearing differently here? I know.
No. Just.
Cool. Yeah, anything anybody like to share? Any questions about it? You know, it looks like we drank the same Kool-Aid this morning before we came in here, right? Pretty fired up, but no, it's just, we know it works and we're passionate about sharing it because sometimes you kind of need a little fire lit under you, right? And really the key to all of this is how bad do you want it? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And if you want this and you want to figure this out, come talk to us and let us know. Say, hold me accountable, or let's figure something out. And that's what I wrote these 3 things here, because these are things we should be looking at. Minimum standards with what are your minimum standards for yourself of what you're going to do on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. You need to establish some minimum standards. And a minimum standard should be something to the effect of, I need to at least reach out to my sphere on a regular basis, at least 3 out of 5 days this week, right? But let's start with 1 day. Let's do it 1 day, right? Ken, you had a great day yesterday. So I could do this every day. I said, but you already did it, which is great, on a Monday. You hit your 5 appointments. You set 5 appointments on a Monday. You're good for the whole week. That's what kept me through leadership through all these years. If I had to make those calls every single day, it was a grind. And I did that for a period of time, and I wasn't happy. So when you can front load, it's called front loading the week on a Monday, get in there, just make your calls. And before you start getting distracted with emails, with your text, with Facebook, with social media, remember, social media, it's an addiction that is going to keep everybody in a trap limbo and not productive. So don't fall for it. Okay. If you're truly doing some marketing on there and engaging, that's great, but don't be on it 24/7. Get in, post what you need to post, get out and get onto your activities. Set time for it in your schedule. So it's not every day that you have to check these notifications. It'll be okay. If you don't see a message for a few days, I'm telling, it's all right. Yes, we do get business. I just had a referral on a messenger notification, so check it, right? But don't constantly get trapped where you check the one message. Next thing you know, you spent 20 minutes to an hour later on social media, like, what the heck just happened right now? So set minimum standards for yourself. Control it. There's something on your iPhone app where you can put a timer on how much social media it'll allow you, and then it blocks you. Set that up. Set these safeguards in place. Accountability, that's up to you how bad you want it. But you got to share with your manager, your leader, what your goals are, what you're trying to accomplish. And you got to give them permission to hold you accountable and say, you're not doing your job. You're not doing what you said that you want to be here for. And I can tell you're not happy because you know you're not doing these things. Okay. And then database. We have to constantly work on our database. And Brian, thanks for coming in. And if you have a few minutes, if anybody has questions, heard the same thing about Follow Up Boss as well. Create some type of system that you are refining your database and continuing to clean that up, because this SOI is going to be your goal. Okay, this is where it's at. And it's getting to the point where you're in touch with them, and you can use different mediums to stay in touch with these people, but you need to call them and you need to have conversations and set those meetings. So I just wanted to make sure I finished with those closing. Anything else you want to
Yeah,
add to?
there's a lot of activities that we do. You get into a lot of bad habits too. You know, if you don't actively set a schedule for yourself, before you know it, it's Thursday. Before you know it, it's Saturday. And it's too late. Your open house is too late. Everything's, you have to, you know, we talk about CRMs, we talk about all these things. How many people have active buyers right now here? Raise your hand if you're working with active buyers. Okay, how many have 3 or more buyers? Raise your hand. How many have 5 or more buyers? Okay, Leslie, share with me what they're looking for.
Frustrating.
Share with me real quick, what are they looking for? Just quickly, quick.
Bedroom, 2 bath, 800,000. Camarillo or Ventura, single story up to 1.8 million.
Okay, I'm gonna stop. What I want you to do, this is what I learned this from a top guy. And I'm telling you, when I'm not bringing this up because again, but when I was doing a lot of business, I went to an awards ceremony and the guy next to me, I was like 35th in California. The guy next to me was 14th and the guy above him was number 9. And he did double and he did double of that. It was like insane numbers. And that's the time where my numbers were through the roof. That guy, the top guy, had 3x5 cards. And he wrote down his buyer on each one and what their needs were and what he was looking for. And every day, every morning, he would look through them and read them. And then look on the MLS and find the home. You have to have them in front of you and look at them and live them. Because if they go on in a CRM, they're gonna die. They go on a sheet of paper and it gets on a stack, it's gonna die. At least have the sheet in front of you. And every morning, look at line. I do it all the time. I look and go, oh my God, I forgot that person needed that. Look at that stuff and scan through the thing. The other thing you can do is start, I would tell you, reevaluate the clients that you have, the buyer list. Go through, make a list of priorities. Whether it has pool, 1-story, 2-story, whatever, and have them rank it from 1 to 10 on the ranking. Make a phone call. You're going to accomplish 2 things. You're going to get a new insight of what's important to them and what's not. But you're also showing that buyer that you're actively still working with them. Because when there's no inventory, you can go a few weeks without talking to them and they think that you're not even working for them. So when you call them up, I want you to go and say, I have these, you can even set an appointment, have them come to your office, have a buyer consultation with them. But if not, do it over the phone and say, okay, how important is the pool? And before they had told you, I need a pool, I have to have this, I have to have that. Then all of a sudden you see it's a 3 on a 1 to 10, and you were going crazy only looking for that. And maybe now there's a house that fits all the other areas, but the pool is only a 3. So you can call them up, like, I want to show you this home. I know it doesn't have the pool, but it has all the other stuff. Well, I really need a pool. Well, you ranked it a 3. Why not take a look at it? Maybe it's not that important. Maybe in this market, you have to compromise a little bit. Okay, let me look at it. You know, I love it. It fits everything. So do that. Also, look at homes that have been priced too high, that are sitting there. A lot of people are throwing some huge numbers out there and they're sitting there. So don't be afraid. Those are the beautiful ones for me. Those are the ones that I can go in and I can have some room to negotiate and breathe a little bit. So go in and lowball them. Who cares? You never know. The people might call the agent. Ask them questions. Actually, we just did this with Al Galvis in our office. He asked me to show a property for his kids. House was priced at $1,025,000. And I talked to the agent for him. Any offers? No. What's the activity like? Well, you know, we got a lot of activity. Great house. And I say, it seems like it's priced a little high. Yeah, it is. So is there flexibility? Yes, there is. It sold for $929 in a market where everything's selling over because I asked questions. I knew. So that's one thing to do. I'm going to end this. I know I'm going to go on and on, but reevaluate your clients, reevaluate your buyers, go through, number it, and then relook at the listings that are available. I'll end it with that.
Cool. Sounds good. Any questions or just for our next training class, we're gonna do in Simi on Tuesday. So we're gonna go back and forth. Okay, so next Tuesday will be in Simi. Following Wednesday will actually be our monthly Camarillo office meeting, but you're all welcome to come check it out. So we're just gonna do it to try to take a little pressure off instead of twice a week, trying to be here, trying to be in Simi every single week is a lot. And as the activities should be picking up for everybody, we want to still keep everybody connected and sharing ideas, talking about things that are working right now. You know, just if anybody feels comfortable in sharing it, what do you guys want to focus on? What's going to help you with your business right now? Do you want, like, even as he's talking about the 3x5 cards and things like that, is that something that we need to focus on? Is like, okay, how do you actually prospect? Like, what does that conversation take place? Like, what are we doing? How do we organize like our intake sheets? You know, like I don't know what is needed out there. I know what's helped me in different trainings and coaching. It's not the most exciting stuff, but it's important because it does help create these environments and systems of success. So, you know, what would be most helpful to all of you or any of you?
I would like to see how you document everything on intake sheets.
Okay.
And it's one thing I've lacked, you know, one area I've lacked in is being organized with documenting it.
Okay.
So I could use help with that.
So, okay, so the process for intake and follow-up, okay,
All the documentation.
yeah, no, that's good. Anything else that would be helpful just for future? And I want to create specific trainings for these so that we can do it, jump into it, kind of dive deep with it, you know, just like we talked about with Brian and how he organizes his CRM. I'm sure that would be helpful to really just jump into it and actually visually see it and see kind of what that steps, you know, that process looks like. So maybe we can do something if you're open to that and tie that in with that. So show a digital way of doing it, show an old school way of just taking it on paper or keeping like, you know, note cards together like that. Any other things that would be helpful?
One thing that was mentioned at the beginning of the meeting was that the lack of listings is
Right.
our fault.
Right.
And it's not taking action and
Right.
doing follow-up and reaching out to past clients. So maybe just taking action and
Steps
doing
to
the
take action.
activities.
Okay. So activities like to take action, right?
Yep.
So activities to take listings. So we may be doing that on not this Friday, but the following Friday. Jorge's asked us to do something to that effect on the you know, the weekly REA meeting market update. So we have about 30 minutes there. I know Ken's been asked to speak at an office in Arcadia as well, which he wanted me to go out to. So either both of us will be on there, but we'll be hitting on that topic there. So that'll be good for that. Any other things that would be helpful right now? Yes, sir. Not this coming Friday. I believe it's the next Friday or the Friday after. So I have to check the date, but we'll give you a heads up on that. Any other ones? Any other subjects? I wrote a list of them. Let me just see it just to see if any of these sound like something you want to do. Meeting If you think of it, please feel free to share it too. Next classes, okay. I put develop your plan of action. So this is like listing presentation focus. One of the things that you have to have on there is called a plan of action. What do I do if I list a home and what are the steps that I take? Do you have one? There is one in the script book there that gives you the steps, but you should know, okay, before we take the listing, photos, everything that we do, you should have it all outlined and laid out that if you list a home with me, these are the things that we do. I put your 21 listing questions. He didn't say it at this one, but I've heard him say it before. Maybe it was at this retreat. In 17 minutes, Mike Ferry asked, I think 115 questions in 17 minutes. And it's all through discovery. And it doesn't seem like rapid fire, but that's the entire listing presentation is getting the information, and they self-discover that they want to list with you by doing that. So do you have 21 listings, just 21? Do you have 21 questions that you have prepared for listing? What does your resume look like? Your references, how to present on pricing strategy. Excited about the opportunity to be told no. That's a mindset, right? Of understanding that we have to shift what's keeping us from doing business. Accountability. And then I think these are just a bunch of notes, but those were some of the classes, just the options that I wrote. Are any of those anything of interest? Do we want to work on those things? You know, what would be helpful? Do we know what we need? What's that? All of it? All the above? Okay, I really want to put a hard focus on listings and taking listings and doing everything we can to just become the strongest listing agents possible. So the more that we can figure that out as an office, that's what's going to take us through like the roof in terms of production. And with those listings, it's going to create other buyer and seller opportunities. So I want to put a hard focus towards that. So anything that you come up with ideas that'll be helpful, just let me know, because I want to make sure we're supporting that. But no, thank you guys all for coming in. Hopefully you got some nuggets here. So we'll wrap it up. All right. Thanks, guys.